After 1,671 games, the EFL season 24-25 is finished. It's finished here at Wembley, where George and myself have just watched AFC Wimbledon join Charlton and Sunderland in winning the playoff final. This time in League Two, this time against Walsall, but similarly to Charlton, by the score of 1-0. That goal scored by Myles the Hipployte, cracking low strike from the edge of the box just before half-time. And also, like Charlton, George, it's a Wimbledon team who have moseyed their way through these playoffs without conceding a goal. 1-0 against Notts in the first leg, 1-0 against Notts in the second leg, 1-0 against Walsall in the final. Zeros and ones, baby.
What do they say about clean sheets?
Nathan Jones loves them.
Yeah. Some people assume this was going to be a really poor game. Hello. Some people thought it was going to be a very poor game. And some idiot podcasters thought, you know what, actually, I think this might be quite exciting. Maybe it's going to be two teams.
What were you thinking?
I don't know. It went exactly the way that most sane people thought it would. It was a first half with very little between the two sides. Yeah, it was a great match. Thank you. And we don't support one of these teams.
Okay, all right.
Neutrals.
Thank
Good
you
match,
so
though.
much.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
And it was it was the first half where for the first 40 minutes or so, both teams kind of traded blows without actually kind of blowing.
Blows?
Traded.
Would we say they traded blows?
Well, it was traded blows in the way that
Sort
like, it's a boxing fight where they're like throwing jabs and neither are landing.
Just lightly breathed on each other.
But I do kind of think by the time the goal came, the impetus was certainly with AFC Wimbledon. They were the team that looked like they might maybe create a chance of note. And the goal itself, as has been the case in these playoffs, it wasn't a clear-cut opportunity. It wasn't a well-worked goal. It was a case of one of the rare shots on target flying into the back of the net. Marcus Brown with a shot that was blocked, and thought the ball fell to Hipployte, and he finished well into the bottom right-hand corner. Second half, Walsall had a couple of opportunities that they absolutely did not have in the first half. Ball cleared off the line about 5 minutes into the second half. The change of Matt for Amanci certainly gave them a much more attacking thrust. But what Amanci provides in causing chaos in the final third, he lacks in terms of finesse. And that was the issue there, where a couple of times he had opportunities, one in particular, which we'll talk about in more detail soon, where he had a really good opportunity and he kind of lobbed it into Simpkins' hands. So I think in terms of the balance of play, Dons deserved this. I thought they were very good. They restricted Walsall to very little. They took their chance when it came. I think for Walsall, there'll be frustration that, you know, having put to bed some of the ghosts that were born over the last few months in that brilliant two-legged victory over Chesterfield, I think that, you know, this is the one team where maybe you can just say they didn't really turn up.
Yeah. Did they put the ghosts away, or was this a bit like The Last of Us, where you get rid of some of the bad guys and you think you're finished,
Is that a spoiler?
and then they just rise up again, sometimes from under the earth? You can tell I've just watched season 2, episode 2. Wow, what a piece of TV. But this was equally dynamic and intriguing as a spectacle, because it wasn't really, was it? It was, and it was always going to be like this. I said to George after about 2 minutes, I was like, look, we've got one team playing 3 big, beefy, meaty centre-backs. We've got another team playing 3 big, beefy, meaty centre-backs. They're both playing a wing-back on each side, who broadly cancelled each other out. I don't think any of the wing-backs had any good moments in attack. Gordon had a couple of dribbles against Tilly. Tilly had a couple of good defensive moments against Gordon. The other side was broadly ignored. Asimwe against Neufeld basically wasn't a battle at all in the end. And both teams have one recognised striker, with Matt up top for Walsall and Stevens up top for Wimbledon, albeit Marcus Brown, in fairness, was playing very high and on the last line. So 2 up top for Wimbledon, 1 up top for Walsall. That's still a lot of players in the central area, whether they're double pivot defensive midfielders in the case of Walsall, whether it's Reeves with Smith and Hipployte in front of them, whether it's Hall and Jealous in the dual 8 roles. It was very congested, and the game looked exactly how you'd expect it to look, and was won by a moment of quality. Either side, in theory, could have had that moment of quality, but from the off, as you've alluded to, I do think Wimbledon looked a little more comfortable, a little more happy with the game plan. In the regular season, Walsall gave Wimbledon the ball, and Wimbledon don't really like that, but in this game, they were able to play the game on their terms, and I think that's going to be one of my main takeaways from these playoff finals. Yes, there's no denying that Sheffield United were the better side for an hour against Sunderland, and then Sunderland were able to turn it round. But Charlton 1-0 against Orient, Wimbledon 1-0 against Walsall. These are tight games. They are won with a free kick goal and another goal from outside the box. You can't go over the top with your match analysis, but I think you can just about say the 2 winning teams were able to play the game on their terms. And You saw it play out. Wimbledon defended really well in the second half. Just one moment really where the ball squirmed towards the goal line. Goodman having come out and not quite got a low cross, was cleared away on the line. And then the Amanci moment, George, was a huge one really. And there was still a good 30 minutes left in the game, but you have to say the Amanci moment for Walsall now looks like their biggest moment. And it's a really interesting one where, let's start with the finish, where Amanci is really well set. He's essentially one-on-one. He's in the left-hand side of the box. The angle is not simple for him. A lot of strikers would go low and hard across the goalkeeper. Some strikers, like Mayenda, might have gone high and to the near post. Those are the two natural finishes you would suggest. Big Levi Amanci has gone for the lift over the goalkeeper, and he's not caught it well. And Goodman just pouched it. And it felt weird that he had tried that type of finish. It felt really bad, to be honest, and it was Walsall's only massive opportunity that they created. But we also were discussing whether, and maybe this is going a bit too deep, but with VAR in operation for the first League Two game of the season, did Joe Lewis have a little bit of Amanchi's shirt as he burst into the box? I think he probably did.
I mean, we could very much see that he did. I think from our angle, we were kind of behind the run of Amanci, and it was very clear to see that Lewis grabbed his shirt and pulled it. And the visual for that, I think we all now recognise, and we see it as being an automatic, at the very least, foul and yellow card. What annoys me about this is that I have no doubt that if Amanci just fell over, either the foul and probably the red card, because he would have been, A, regardless of whether it's in the box or not, there was no attempt to play the ball, and B, he was clearly, he would have been preventing him from a goal scoring opportunity, which he then took badly. So my assumption is either on the on-pitch decision or the VAR would have given a free kick or a penalty, depending where the offence happened, and a red card. And Amanci, for staying on his feet and getting off quite a bad shot, was probably in no severe way impacted by the contact itself. Is therefore punished. I hate it. Do we want to be creating an environment in which players are encouraged to fall over when there is no need to and they can get a shot off? Like, in my mind, you shouldn't be punished for staying on your feet and trying to do that. If the offence happened, like with any advantage, it should be called back if there's no advantage to be gained. So that was frustrating, but let's not focus upon it. It was a chance where, like, in the context of today and in the context of these playoffs, it was a massive chance because there weren't very many big chances. There are many games that happen over the course of the season where that is one of 6, 8, 10 decent chances, and it kind of gets forgotten. But there's no denying that we had a big VAR moment on Saturday that swung the game in one way, and today, if you're going to have VAR in operation, if you're looking to prevent clear and obvious errors, then to me, if a centre-back grabs a handful of someone's shirt as they're running through on goal, regardless of what the outcome is, then that should be a free kick, and the punishments afterwards should be implemented.
I think if you think of Dan Ballard's performance on Saturday, if you think of Lloyd Jones's performance yesterday, and if you think of Joe Lewis's performance today, with a special shout out to Ryan Johnson, the Rhino next to him, and Harbottle and latterly Ogundere, it feels like it's kind of been the centre-backs weekend, and Lewis in particular stood up strong to everything, notwithstanding the tug on Big Levi. He was absolutely magnificent, and he has been such a fantastic player for Wimbledon since they signed him. The same for Johnson next to him, but Lewis is kind of the standout individual for me today. Walsall's backline defended pretty well as well. As discussed, Wimbledon didn't create a huge amount of chances, and the goal that came, actually it's come from a set piece that's half cleared once, blocked another time, and then gets smashed in. Not much they could have done about that. And Simkin, probably not much he could have done with the shot low and into the corner. Other than that, not a huge amount of standout individuals, I wouldn't say. Marcus Brown was fouled a lot, which just shows his kind of fleet of foot and his skill. He had one good moment in the first half where Reeves managed to punch a ball through the Walsall midfield, and Brown had a shot well saved wide. But otherwise, this was a game for the team, I think, the team of AFC Wimbledon. And that's important because this season they've had key players, like all good teams do, but they are just a team. They are a team who defend, first and foremost, have kept the most clean sheets in the league by miles, the best defence in the league by miles. When they've gone ahead, 27 times it was in the regular season, they gave up the lowest proportion of their leads. They conceded the fewest percentage of equalisers in the league. And they showed it against Notts in the first leg. They showed it against Notts in the second leg. They showed it against Walsall here. And in the context of their season, George, there was a period, wasn't there? There was a wobble. Name me a League Two team this season, even the ones that won automatic promotion, that didn't have a wobble. This is just a fact of this league and good teams within it. When Wimbledon had one, the feature of it was they chucked away some leads, and that felt weird because they hadn't done that all season. That felt worrying because the 2 previous completed seasons, they'd been horrendous in the second half of the season, and particularly when it came to defending their leads, they'd been one of the worst teams in English football. So you worried if those wounds had been reopened, you worried if some weakness of personality was going to come to the fore. They have answered that unbelievably well, and Johnny Jackson at the heart of it, who maintained composure throughout, who broadly stuck with his guns throughout. He's made a couple of interesting changes towards the end of the season, flipping the wing backs, which seems to have helped defensively, handling both the loss of form and then the injury to Omar Bugul, who's a real talisman for them up top, has managed to find a way to manoeuvre them through the playoffs. And for Jackson, in his 3rd season as Wimbledon manager, where they only just about, they finished near the bottom of the table in his 1st season, mid-table in his 2nd season, and now playoff winners in his 3rd season. It's a hell of a trajectory in your first 3 years of management, and he's got a promotion on his CV.
Yeah, and it feels like he's grown basically with every season. It feels like he's grown in every season that he's managed so far. Where you mentioned, the issues with keeping hold of leads last season, as you say, despite that isolated spell where they really struggled to do so, it's been a massive strength of theirs this season. I think managers who tend to set teams up to defend first often come under criticism quicker when things don't go particularly well, because that's normally because the attacking side of things drops off. They've never been a poorer side, but by the same measure, in the same way as Nathan Jones, when you are a side who are so adept at defending leads, when you're a side who are so adept at managing games when ahead and being really solid defensively regardless of game state, then that is when a manager's fingerprints are all over a team, I would say. It's when it is the way that you're set up and the way that you defend. Like, defending isn't an individual skill, it's a system. It's a need to do so as a unit, and it's not just the defensive unit, it's the whole team entirety. It's not just defending your box, it is stopping the team from getting into dangerous areas, it's stopping the team from playing through the middle, it's stopping the team from getting dangerous crosses, it's defending your box well when the crosses do come in, and that's what they're so good at. So, he's a rookie-ish manager. Obviously he had a spell at Charlton, but I think there's something about the Johnny Jackson story that should really kind of be a blueprint for a lot of young managers or players who are looking to come into management, where he's taken on a job. It hasn't been an immediate success, but the club have stuck by him for the most part, and he's built season on season, and he's now achieved a League Two promotion and has developed a style of play over time in terms of doing so. And I'm over the moon that he got to experience that today.
Yes, indeed. It feels a long time ago that George and I played foot golf for Johnny Jackson in what was a pilot for a series that we tried to sell off. No buyers for NTT20 foot golf. I think it was a draw between you and JJ, wasn't it?
Correct.
I didn't play very well that day. But I think he was assistant at that time at Charlton, and spending a few hours with him that afternoon, watching the desire burn through that I think he said to us, I need to manage. Like I physically and emotionally, like I need to do this. And management increasingly, I think, looks absolutely miserable. I think it looks incredibly hard. I've actually spoken
on days like today.
I spoke to someone this weekend who said, to be honest, I think I would rather be a coach because this is a player who's coming to the end of his career who said to me, I'm actually thinking coaching. It just looks like better for my personality because I think I would struggle with the scrutiny. And every single manager across the season is going to come under some scrutiny. Jackson and Sadler, more than most, considering where their teams finished in the league this season, and Jackson's got over the line. So really, really pleased for him. Can't not talk about Don's fans. The history of the club is well known. It's something that inspires football fans across the world. It certainly inspires us, and I know a lot of the listeners of the pod have Wimbledon as a soft spot, a second team, a third team, because of what they had to go through back in the early 2000s and the strength of character shown by such a big group of people to bring the club back up. They made it to League One, didn't they? They had a really tough time there. They had some incredible survivals, to be honest, before dropping down. And 3 seasons in League Two, they've taken a breath. And we should mention Craig Cope here. They hired a director of football that has been exactly what you want a director of football in League Two to be. He has not made it about himself. He has clearly worked very closely with the manager, and he has built a really good squad, and a good squad with players from non-league, players who are dropping down. They have just built basically the perfect squad for what Jackson needed to build this team that has now won promotion, and that's what Wimbledon fans have been craving for so long. Plough Lane has been built, and I'm lucky to go there a fair few times, half a dozen times a season. I think it's such a great day out. I think that all fans, neutral fans, should try and get to Plough Lane if you haven't already, to tick it off. You're 72, you're 92, but I don't expect there to be many tickets available next season, because you move up to League One, suddenly the clubs that are coming to play are much bigger clubs. It's going to be a huge test for them, I've no doubt about that. Do I have some concerns about where they're going to find goals next season? Yes, I do. Am I pretty sure that the way that they play right now will give them a decent floor? Yeah, I think it will. But that's not to say it's not going to be a big challenge for them. I'm looking forward to seeing how they approach recruitment, whether they try and sign more veteran players, more PK'd players. That's tough when you go up a level, to be honest. I think a lot of teams that go up from League 2 to League 1 find it difficult, because all of a sudden, the market that you're shopping in, you are not the big fish anymore, or even close to that. So a really, really big challenge from a recruitment standpoint for Wimbledon. They don't have a ton of players who, as individuals, you'd be like, yeah, nailed on, stepping up, no problems. But they're an incredibly cohesive team unit with a good team spirit, and that's a really good starting point. And their style of play, it's not going to be like something they have to rip up and start again, which I think always bodes quite well. We finish with a line on Walsall, George. They've been one of the main characters of the pod, you have to say, all season. One of the main characters, therefore, in the EFL. For their fans, this is the culmination of basically a horror movie. Like a horror movie, because horror movies don't just start with everything rubbish. The horror really comes from thinking you've got something pretty good and then having it snatched away from you in tragic circumstances and somewhat gory circumstances. I think all of that applies to Walsall in the last few months.
Yeah, I kind of think today is probably the least gory experience they've had all season, where at least it was just a cut and dry 1-0, no false hope, no lead to go into.
Just a single gunshot to the head.
Yeah, exactly, basically.
Wow.
I mean, it's brutal. It's interesting, if you compare the three teams that have lost playoff finals, you've got Blades and Wilder, where despite the initial angst, I think Wilder's stock is pretty high, but the future may be uncertain. You've got Leyton Orient and Wellands, where, as we know, Wellands is seen as probably the most important asset that Orient have, and they have to keep it at all costs. And then you've got Matt Sadler and Walsall, where my assumption is, sadly, that a lot of the fans who've left here today probably think that the time has come for him to move on, that it is unforgivable to throw away a 12-point lead. It's unforgivable to give up a 17-point lead to Bradford, and to lose a playoff final and not really turn up for the game. Whether or not a one-goal margin of victory should be the difference between being a hero and being out of a job, I don't believe that should be the case. I also think that in Sadler, you've got a guy who, given a pre-season, built a phenomenally good League Two side, and circumstances such as the loss of one in particular key player in Nathan Lowe, and some quite frustrating variants going against them in terms of the opposition's finishing, is what ended up putting them here. There are so many moments in the run up to the end of the season, isolated moments, chances not taken in games they end up losing when they were level, that would have seen them over the line. It is just one of those seasons, and this won't make it any easier for Walsall fans. It's one of those seasons where you can point at so many occasions where things could have been different, and we always talk about managers as if they have absolute control over a team, and that's just not the case. There are so many variables that can go for or against you, and in my mind, this is a season that's ended in chronic disappointment for Walsall, and I'm sure they will look for answers as to why this has happened, but it doesn't always have to be the case. Well, it's Sadler. He's the one that has to pay for this. Team performance isn't just a proxy for managerial performance, in my mind, and there are too many positives, I think, to tear up what's been built this season to start again. But I'm not a fan, and I'm not the one hurting today, and I'm not the one who has to deal with the disappointment of the amount of heartbreak that they've gone through this season.
It's almost a blanket statement in League Two that the teams that go up do not have a manager in their first season. And if you're listening to this, maybe you could go back through the last seasons and tell me if I'm wrong here. But I'm pretty confident.
A bit of research, crowdfunding,
a bit of listener research. It's generally a truth that a first season of a manager's reign,
full season.
Manager's reign, full season. in League Two. Very rarely ends in promotion for whatever reason. This level seems to prioritise, or rather reward, solidity, consistency, things of that nature. And so if they do decide to roll the dice, if they do decide to spin the wheel, I think that's worth pointing out. I know that there are some fans who still want to roll the dice regardless. This is an ownership group who broadly I think have run the club pretty well. I like the way that they approach things. I like the way that they communicate. I have some belief in them more generally, zooming out. And if they decide to make a managerial hire, I think they might do all right in picking the next guy, just like they did all right picking this guy who's taken them to fourth. But
also, how many before that weren't? I mean, Walsall, it feels like as a club and as a fan base, you know that it's not that easy to go out and hire a good manager.
Yeah, and my point that I was going to work my way back to after about 20 minutes, as always, was the squad itself and the existing players for next season. This is not a League Two squad that you look at as a neutral or as a rival fan and go like, whoa, wow, Walsall, strong. Like, it just isn't. I don't mean to be rude about the players in this squad, and many of them have performed really, really well, at least for 2/3 of the season in particular. But I think maybe in the last few months we saw that these guys are mostly blokes who are experiencing this sort of thing for the first time. Struggled maybe with the high intensity pressing style in terms of being able to carry it on physically for the last few months of the season, and so there's also going to be a lot of work to be done recruitment wise, whether Sadler stays or goes. They've got quite a few returning loanees. There'll be lots of gaps to fill, and again, like, it's hard in League Two. It's pretty difficult to recruit and basically change, make your club massively better in one summer unless you've got a ton of cash, which I don't think Walsall necessarily do. So it's been a damaging few months for them. They looked all set to be a League One team next season. Instead, they will be in League Two, and I guess the bookmaker odds will come out tonight. It'll be kind of fascinating to see where they're priced up. I think that'll be one that's quite hard for the traders as we sit here today. But a fabulous weekend at Wembley, George. The end of the football in the 24-25 season. We are not necessarily just going to post this on the pod feed and then go dark.
What?
For the next couple of months.
No.
Holidays don't exist.
I'm going away for 6 weeks tomorrow.
Holidays do not exist in NTT20 world.
Flying to Oxford.
And it's been a real pleasure to do this with you this season, mate.
And you, mate. They normally can't see us doing this.
Thank you so much for watching all season on YouTube, for listening, as you guys have done for 9 years now on the pod feed. It is, as a few people have commented on YouTube, particularly as we record these shows from Wembley, we have the best job in the world. We do really believe that, and I promise you we do enjoy it, but we also treat it very seriously, and we try and make sure that we maintain high standards for you guys and put out really good stuff. And I hope that you have found that, despite both of us having babies halfway through the season. I'm really, I kind of can't really believe that happened and that we've cracked on, but I'm really proud of our consistency. I'm proud of the wider NTT20 team, particularly on NTT20.com. We have a wonderful group of paid subscribers, and we hope that you guys have really enjoyed what we put out this season. And as you can probably imagine, if you've been following us for a long time, we've got some big plans for next season, season 10 of NTT20. We've got some new stuff that will happen, some new stuff for you to enjoy. We're not going to stand still. We're going to keep on grinding.
I thought you were going to say we've got some beers to drink.
And that too. Thanks for listening.
See you soon.
Thanks for watching. Go very well.